Hello, everyone, and welcome to the April 22nd, 2015 episode of Balls Deep Sports Talk. I am your host, Scotty Ball. Happy Earth Day, by the way. It is Earth Day today. So I hope that some of you were able to get outside today and enjoy Earth Day out and about in Mother Nature, as is best in my opinion. However, if you happen to live in a place like Minnesota, as I do, the weather is definitely not all that enjoyable today. It is extremely cold and windy yet, and so maybe your Earth Day, if you're a fellow Minnesotan, was best spent indoors, just being thankful that there was sunshine and not cloud cover the entire day as we've had earlier this week. Again, I'd like to thank you for joining us here this evening on WNLMradio.com, Northern Lights Radio, which I come to you from every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. I've been trying to run a 60-minute show and failing horribly at keeping within that 60-minute time frame. If you've been listening up until this point, you know that to be quite true. However, I just wanted to remind you that I found out last week that if I am to run overtime, if it's to be a 70-minute show or a 75 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it ends up to be, that the station is okay with that. So thank you so much, Adam and Nick and everyone at Northern Lights Radio on WNLMradio.com for being so, we'll say, flexible and understanding and being so willing to work with my show. I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Now, on tonight's show, there is, as always, a ton of stuff to discuss. So, very good chance we'll be going well over that 60-minute mark. Like I said, expect a good 75-minute show probably tonight with all the stuff we got to talk about. Some of that stuff, if you don't follow on Facebook or Twitter, which you would know what the upcoming topics are here on the show if you follow it on Facebook and Twitter, which, by the way, you can do that on Twitter at BDST Show. Very simple. Or you can like me and friend me on Facebook at Scotty-Ball. So some of tonight's many topics include the Minnesota Wild and the NHL playoffs, which I have been enjoying a ton of. And I am not a diehard hockey fan by any means. I enjoy the sport. I find it entertaining. However, I'm not a huge fan, as are many of my Minnesota brethren here in the state of hockey. So while I admittedly am not as experienced or well-versed in hockey analysis as a lot of the listeners may be, or maybe not, I don't know how many of you watch hockey or not, but I assure you that I have been doing my very best for the last several months, not just since the hockey season started, but for the last several months I've been doing my best to follow and pay attention to and learn as much hockey as I possibly can. And I've actually been enjoying that much more than I expected to. It's been a great hockey season. There's a lot of great players and great teams in the league playing some great hockey, and I've found a ton of it very entertaining, and I'm glad that I've taken it up. But I will be doing my best to give you what hockey coverage and opinion and analysis that I can. And if I'm way off on anything, or if I'm actually, for some crazy reason, right on anything, please feel free to let me know. If you are a hockey fan who has some expertise that you could lend to the show, send me a tweet on Twitter, like I said, at BDST Show, or send me up a message on Facebook, and it's Scotty-Ball. I got two pages. One's a public figure page, one's a regular one, and you can go to either of those and let me know that way as well. And in addition to having plenty of hockey to discuss tonight on the show, we've also got a lot of basketball, specifically NBA basketball, to discuss. They're also in the playoffs of their season, as is the NHL season. And tonight, hopefully, we can finally have my long-awaited debate and discussion on the NBA MVP picture this year, which, as a lifelong basketball fan of over 30 years, we'll just leave it at that, this is arguably the most impressive, competitive, challenging, voting-wise, choosing-wise, of any NBA MVP race that I can recall, and quite possibly in any sport that I can recall, at least in recent memory. Mind you, that is contingent on the number of worthy candidates in this year's class. That is not to say that there are two men that are so deserved that it should be split co-MVP'd as the NFL has done in recent years, although it is quite possible that the NBA could do that, but we'll get into that a little more when we're talking basketball. But so we also got a lot of NBA news to discuss. We've also got part 3 of our NFL draft preview, which will be getting to know the players in the upcoming draft, specifically the first round prospects and some others who will either go likely in the first or second round, names that you should at least be familiar with and names that your team might wind up taking, and it helps to know if they made a good choice there or not. At least I like to know and have an opinion right away, so I do the research beforehand, and I will share that with you, as well as other NFL news, lots of other NFL news to discuss as well, including AP of the Minnesota Vikings and other high-profile players. We will be discussing a little bit of baseball / Minnesota Twins. Not a whole lot of baseball to discuss now that the allure of the opening week and the home openers and all that is over, and we're kind of just into the beginning, the very early stages of a long, grindy season. So there's a little bit of excitement lost in baseball, but not too much. There's still some interesting stuff going on. I'll be sharing that with you and keeping you up to speed as much as I can on what's relevant in Major League Baseball. And for any and all WWE fans who happen to listen to the show, as you know, I am a huge WWE fan, as is my son, pretty much everyone in my household to some extent. I will be previewing the upcoming WWE pay-per-view Extreme Rules, which will be happening this Sunday. And as always, I will be watching it on the WWE Network for just $9.99 a month. But rest assured, all non-WWE fans, I will not be previewing this pay-per-view nowhere nearly as much in depth as we did our WrestleMania preview, in which I had the world's greatest special guest and wrestling expert, Doug Sanders, on. I will be keeping this preview fairly brief. We will be going over who's in what matches and maybe just a little bit of pick'ems, but that's about it. We'll keep the preview on the Extreme Rules to a minimum, especially compared to our, like I said, our past WrestleMania preview extravaganza, which was a massive 55-minute WrestleFest of talking, and it was awesome though. But no, we'll keep the Extreme Rules pay-per-view in this show much shorter than that. But I will be previewing the Extreme Rules pay-per-view for WWE on this upcoming Sunday. And should time allow, we might be able to get a little bit of extra news in, some NASCAR stuff, PGA, boxing. Got the big Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight coming up here on May 2nd, which is right around the corner. We'll be previewing that as in-depth as I can on next week's show, as well as revealing my mock draft for the first round of the 2015 NFL Draft on this coming Wednesday's show. So, huge show, definitely the biggest show that we've done here yet on Balls Deep Sports Talk, coming up next week. However, this week is equally huge here on Balls Deep, and we better get into it. Alright, here we go. If you happen to be a regular weekly listener of the show, thank you very, very much, by the way. But if you are, you would know that we start our show here every week with a segment I like to call Balls on Fire. It is always one of my favorite challenges of the day before I do the show here, to as far as deciding what is going to be the topic that I choose for Balls on Fire. What am I most on fire about, the most heated over, as well as trying to decide what kind of meat I'm going to give you this week and how much and how big it's going to be, as well as our balls deep thought of the day. So there's several things I look forward to here all day long and ponder and think and Christian ponder as I'm getting ready here for the show. And boy, right up until about 10 minutes before I started recording the show here, I was planning on starting out with some hockey. And part of that was just so that I could make the horrible pun that this week we were putting balls on fire on ice. Which, I got to say it anyway, so there we go. But no, I decided we were gonna make that one of the meaty sections, make that one of the meats of the show tonight. And rather, I would start with a different topic that I have been on fire over for quite some time. And now that the NBA regular season is done, I feel that it can finally be looked at, analyzed, discussed, debated, argued, what have you, in an appropriate manner. Because, in my opinion, there were so many candidates in this year's NBA MVP race that until the regular season was done and we saw how the Stars and their teams finished the season, that it was really pointless, almost not pointless, but to an extent it was futile to really analyze and go too in depth over who the NBA MVP should be this season. However, now that the regular season is done finally and the NBA playoffs are underway and we saw how everything played out in the regular season, I am super excited and fired up, hence the segment name, to have our NBA MVP debate to kick off this week's show and this week's Balls on Fire segment. Now, if you are a basketball fan and you have not been following the NBA this season, shame on you. It has been one of the most entertaining, most captivating, well-played, high-quality seasons that I have watched and enjoyed in many, many years since the Jordan era. Arguably was the last time I saw a season from start to finish, top to bottom, league-wide, that had the quality of play and a product that was this good and this entertaining. That's the last time I remember that. And it's that good. Now, that's not to say it's as good or better. I feel it's as good because to me the NBA has finally achieved or is starting to achieve what the NFL has been benefiting from for decades now, 2 decades at least probably, and that is parity. And parity in its truest form. I don't just mean some teams that are always good aren't good anymore and some teams who were never good before are good. No, I mean parity is in everybody has elite superstar talent on their team. The role players on all the playoff teams would have been star players in any other era, in my opinion. Just to give you an example of the level of play and what I'm talking about in regards to that level. But we've got stars who can shoot the ball, which there was a good 10-year period where nobody could shoot. Offense in the NBA stunk. We don't have that anymore. Guys can shoot. Guys can pass. They can get up and down the court like crazy, and they do. If you're another one of those people who felt, well, I don't watch the NBA until the playoffs come around because the regular season is boring, that is a thing of the past. That is over. I can confidently assure you that is no more, and you missed out on a great regular season. And next year, don't be late to get on the boat, because that was a huge issue that the league and basketball